The Crithian delegation had expected gratitude. Instead, Captain Marcus Chen stared at the trembling figure before him with barely concealed disgust. Not at her, but at them. "This is your offering?" Marcus asked, his voice flat. "A person?" The lead diplomat, his scales shimmering with self-satisfaction, inclined his head. "The human saves our queen's life during the ambush. This is appropriate compensation. The queen's daughter. Defective, but still royal blood." Marcus looked at the girl again. She couldn't have been more than 19 standard years. Her violet skin marked with scars that spoke of harsh treatment rather than honorable combat. Her eyes, one golden, one silver, the flaw that had condemned her, stared at the floor. Heavy chains bound her wrists. "We don't do slavery," Marcus said firmly. The diplomat's throat sacs inflated with confusion. "Then, what shall we do with her? She cannot return. She is broken. Failed her trials. Brought shame to the royal clutch." Marcus felt the familiar anger rising, the same fury that had made him refuse a promotion 3 times because it meant leaving fieldwork. Humanity had spent 2 centuries abolishing every form of bondage, and now the galaxy kept trying to gift them sentient beings like furniture. "Leave her here," he said quietly. "Consider your debt paid. Now get off my ship." Her name was Jathira, and she didn't speak for 3 days. Marcus had given her the second-best quarters on the frigate Indomitable. His own cabin was only marginally larger, and made sure the medical bay handled her injuries. The ship's doctor, a kind woman named Okonkwo, reported that most of the scars were from training accidents. Brutal, repetitive training accidents. "They tried to make her something she wasn't," Okonkwo had said, shaking her head. "Her bone structure is wrong for their traditional combat forms. They literally broke her trying to force compliance." On the 4th day, Marcus found Jathira in the cargo bay at 0300 hours. She was moving through forms, not Crithian ones, but something else entirely. Her movements were fluid, adaptive, utilizing her smaller frame and unusual flexibility. She spun low where a Crithian warrior would have stood tall, struck from angles their rigid doctrine never considered. She froze when she noticed him, fear flashing across her mismatched eyes. "Don't stop," Marcus said, settling against a supply crate. "I'm just watching." She hesitated, then slowly resumed. He saw it clearly now. They hadn't produced a failed warrior. They'd tried to forge a sword and gotten upset when the metal formed into a dagger instead. Different weapon, same lethality, but their tradition couldn't accept the deviation. Humans understood deviation. Humanity's entire military philosophy was built on it. "You want to do what?" Commander Williams stared at Marcus like he'd suggested spacing the entire crew. "Trainer," Marcus repeated. "She's got instincts, Commander. Raw talent. The Crithians tried to beat it into their mold and called her broken when she didn't fit. She's not military personnel. She's not even human. Neither was Sergeant Crix before we recruited him, and now he's our best demolitions expert." Marcus leaned forward. "The Crithians have a rigid warrior caste system. They train one way, fight one way, think one way. She doesn't fit that template because she's better than that. More adaptable. She thinks like a human," Williams finished, understanding dawning. "You think she's got that spark?" "I know she does. I've seen it." Williams was quiet for a long moment. "If she washes out, she won't. If she washes out," Williams continued firmly, "she gets civilian status and transport wherever she wants to go. Understood?" "Understood." The crew of the Indomitable had seen strange things in their 5-year deep space mission, but watching their captain personally train an alien cast-off wasn't even in the top 10 anymore. What surprised them was how quickly Jathira adapted to human combat doctrine. Crithian warfare was about honor, prescribed techniques, rigid adherence to forms perfected over millennia. Human warfare was about winning, using every advantage, adapting to every situation, and rewriting the rulebook when it didn't work. Jathira absorbed it all like a dried sponge finding water. "Why do humans fight so chaotically?" she asked one day, her voice still soft from disuse but growing stronger. Marcus grinned. "Because chaos is honest. The universe doesn't care about your perfect form when you're facing 3 opponents in 0G with failing life support. You do what works, not what looks pretty. The Crithian masters would call this dishonorable." "The Crithian masters," Marcus said, handing her a training blade, "aren't here. Now show me that spinning takedown again, but this time, don't telegraph it. The pirate attack came 6 months into her training. A Vexor raiding party, 12 ships strong, dropped out of hyperspace with demands for cargo and hostages. Standard procedure said the Indomitable should run. A single frigate couldn't fight those odds. Marcus had never been good at standard procedure. All hands, combat stations. Lieutenant Jathira, you're with me on boarding defense. The bridge went silent. William shot him a look but didn't countermand the order. Jathira's hands trembled as she checked her weapon. But her eyes, those mismatched eyes that had condemned her among her own people, burned with something that looked like purpose. The Vexor made the mistake humanity's enemies always made. They assumed smaller meant weaker, different meant inferior. They breached the cargo bay expecting frightened merchants. They found Marines, and they found Jathira. She moved like liquid shadow, using the zero-G environment the Vexor struggled with, striking from impossible angles. Her smaller frame sliding through defensive lines meant to stop bulkier opponents. Everything the Crithians had called weakness, her size, her flexibility, her undisciplined instincts, became devastating advantages in actual combat. When the last Vexor fell, Jathira stood in the center of the bay, breathing hard, her weapon steady. The Marines stared at her with new respect. Marcus smiled. That's my warrior. The message to the Crithian queen was brief. Thank you for your gift. Your daughter serves with honor aboard the Indomitable. She recently distinguished herself in combat against superior forces. The human military is pleased to count her among our ranks. She is not broken. Your training methods were Captain Marcus Chen Jathira read the message over his shoulder. Her reflection visible in the screen. 1 gold eye, 1 silver, both shining with tears. I am not failed, she whispered. Marcus turned to face her. This warrior the Crithians had thrown away. This soldier who'd found her strength in chaos rather than order. No, he said firmly. You were never failed. You were just waiting for someone to see what you really were. She straightened. Her posture no longer that of a slave or a reject, but of a Marine, unconventional, adaptive, and absolutely lethal. Then let us show them what humanity sees, she said. And Marcus knew that the galaxy's rigid warrior castes, with their ancient traditions and inflexible doctrines, were about to learn a very human lesson. Potential isn't found in perfection. It's found in those brave enough to be different.